Hello everyone! I'm Dr. Zen. I'm a naturopathic doctor here at Viva MedSuite. I'm excited to be chatting about social media, how you can use it for getting patients, getting your personal brand, and how to do it in an effective way that doesn't feel like you're spending all the time in the world or feeling like it's the last thing in the day. So I'll be answering any of your questions when it comes to social media and things like that as well. So we'll be kind of talking about that as well. So I focus on fertility, and I know when I first started, I felt like I could help everyone and see everything, and that made it a lot more challenging. So my biggest recommendation is focus on your niche and find a platform or social media platform that is conducive to that. So we just talked about how if you're seeing women that are over 50, Instagram will probably not be your platform of choice. Choose Facebook, or talk to your clientele right now of what they use. Are they into YouTube? Are they into small videos, long videos, blog posts, whatever that looks like? So then you can kind of maximize that. And then once you've been consistent, like every day, at least 5 days, like 5 days a week for a full year, then you can add another platform. That's always my rule of thumb. Otherwise, you get a little bit of everything and then nothing actually gets accomplished. So you feel really frustrated, and then you're like, social media doesn't work. But remember that social media is free for the most part. So it's our best platform to use. And if you're willing to put in the time, and we'll talk about ways to kind of improve that too, if you're willing to put in the time, it makes the biggest impact. You want to make sure too that you're putting it in your schedule. So just like you'd have a meeting with a patient, you have to have time to batch content and create that content and be in that zone. So knowing when you're most creative is really helpful, whether it's first thing in the morning, middle of the day, or end of the day, but knowing that there's a particular day or time is super helpful. You flow a lot faster, you're able to create that content, and then you've had your 5 to 7 posts for the week and they're already done. So you don't have to think about it, because I was there too when I was like, I'm gonna post today, and then by the end of the day I was like, I have no brain power and I don't know what to say. And I had no content to create, so then I wouldn't do it. And then the next day would go, and then it would just be like, forget social media, it's not worth it. So if you can batch content, that's super helpful. I know for a lot of us, either we're in multiple offices or we're not here full time, and we're either doing telemedicine or other things. So plan accordingly to do your social media at a particular time that works for you. That's the same every week. So for us, we don't see patients on Mondays, and that's my day to do social media and do behind the scene work. But I have like a 4-hour block set up at a particular time that works for me. That way it's done. And then I don't have to think about it for the rest of the week. I will also give you guys access, and then for those that didn't come, you'll have the link to it as well. It's a PDF form of just like the basic things that have been super helpful for me. Again, it's what works for me may not work for you, but I tried to give a variety of different aspects. One thing that can be helpful for social media is planning your content. So using, and there's a ton of free websites. There's like later.com and Planoly. They're great options to really drag the content that you're gonna put on social into the particular days and time, and then it can just alert you on your phone, like just press post, and you just have to press post and you're good to go. So that's really helpful, and they're free, so you can kind of see what your content subjects are. Remember that social media, the end game is for them to come into your office, but for a year, it's definitely not going to happen right away. There's a chance that people will come to you from social media, and most of my patient population comes from social media now. First, you don't need a huge following, but it's most important to create that personal brand. So once they get familiar with your tone, the colors that you typically use, the content that you're providing, then they have an idea of what to expect, and they know what they're looking for when they look at your profile. So maybe you say in a 5 days a week, okay, every Tuesday it's something personal about me, like something that you may not know about me. Maybe on the next day it's a particular condition. So maybe I focus on endometriosis in relationship to fertility as a sub thing. Sometimes we'll talk about quick, like we'll talk about food, or we'll talk about like easy hacks or questions. So pick particular like content blocks for those days. So then instead of just sitting there and being like, I don't know what to write today, you're like, okay, Mondays I talk about me. On Tuesdays I talk about this. And so that way you have an idea and you can start to create those content, and then you can repeat content or reestablish or reuse or repurpose probably once every month and a half. You'd be surprised, only like 1 to 10% of your followers see what you do on social media, so don't feel like you're bothering them by repeating things. A lot of people miss things, and you're like, oh man, I wish I knew that. So just kind of re-establish that part of it. If you choose to do Instagram and that's your demographic, there's a little bit more that goes into it, whether that's static posts, whether that's stories, whether that's reels, like there's all these different platforms. Start with building your static posts, so like your grid first. Once you've done that for a month or so, then start to incorporate kind of stories if you want to. Stories, think of them as kind of the behind the scenes. So maybe you're coming in the office and you're like, hey, today is a busy day, this is what we've got coming up. You know, just they want to kind of see your day-to-day. Don't use it so much as an educational piece as much. That should be kind of something that's a static post. It's a lot of energy to put all of that education out, so make sure it's done that way. And then from there, there's different ways of using social media. Social media can be used for building your personal brand, getting new patients in the door. It's also a great way to create referrals and create new connections with people local and people that are not local. So maybe there's someone who is in the same sphere as you, but they have a different take. Or for us, we'll maybe work with a health coach, or maybe we'll work, like we have patients that are trying to conceive and they're also pregnant and postpartum. So for aesthetic reasons too, they ask me all the time about like Botox and other options and things like that. So we're going to be talking to a holistic facialist about different options and things like that that interest them, that's related, but not exactly what I do either, but it gives them a little bit more space. So those kind of things can be super helpful, and just writing down like, okay, is there a massage therapist or an acupuncturist I can talk to? And then talk to Chelsea too about who's in the building that can help you, whether that's a connection. I know just being here, sometimes people, I'll run into them and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's actually really helpful. Or, oh, I need a consult for a parathyroid surgeon. Now I know one. Or maybe I need someone to get an iron IV. Oh, I know someone, and they take really good care of my patients. So doing that can be helpful. Also, I think if we can start following each other on social media, that's helpful too, because then you kind of are like, oh, I didn't know that person does that. That's helpful for me. People aren't, and social media, you may think, oh, we're all in the same space. You know, how are we going to make that work? People aren't coming because of the location. They're coming for you. So don't feel like there's competition between each provider. There really isn't. It's actually a cohesive space that makes it really inviting. So patients love that the rooms are beautiful, that everyone's excited, and so that's what they're looking for, and that's social media is also part of that, right? Like they're seeing like, this is what she does, oh, this is just the space that she's in, and they love that. So don't feel like that's impedes you in any way. It actually helps your growth. So just know that that's really important. Know that consistency is king. So if you're not willing to be consistent, then you have to outsource. Just know your strengths and weaknesses. Maybe you're like, I am not creative at all. I need help with that. There's some great sites like Fiverr where you can ask someone to create your logo or create, graphics for you for social media. You can outsource for someone to write blog posts for you. There's tons of different options, and they don't have to be on staff all the time. So maybe there's a season that you're like, this is my busy season, or there's stuff going on at home and I still want to be consistent. I also included, there is a great resource. There's a woman by the name of Jasmine Starr. You can find her on Instagram. She's pretty much everywhere. She does, in her membership, she gives you 30 posts, 30 photos. So you really have like no excuse not to post. So, and it's just fill in the blank. So she gives you the topics, and again, in medicine, it's going to be a little bit different, but it gives you that, like, what do I even start with? Like, what is that, like, catchy phrase? It's all in there. And then she has templated photos that you can use for all social media. So that's like an easy, done for you option. She used to do a monthly membership. Now I think there's a particular open time and close time, so just follow her on social. She does a lot of free content, podcasts, all those things are great when you're first starting out. You don't have to outsource and pay for a lot of things. You can do a lot of it on your own if you know the right things to do. So I added that in the list as well. Another big obstacle, or people think it's an obstacle, is like, I don't have any photos of myself, and I don't know what to do about that. Getting a photographer, even for a short amount of time, is so beneficial, and you can repurpose those photos so much. So I included some local people that are awesome. Lauren Hansen, she goes by Lauren Peachy, I think is her title. She is awesome. She's really good at directing you in front of the camera. So if you're someone that's like, ooh, like I don't even know like how to stand or I feel awkward, she's great. She'll teach you like, and you don't even have to worry about it. There's another company called FemForce. So if you're like, okay, I'm really interested in social media, I need more consistent photos, so maybe not just your headshots, but you want them on a more regular basis. She does a great monthly membership, and so you just go in for an hour, she edits all your photos, and then sends it to you. Like, it's super quick and easy. So those are great options that are local, and a great way to get that content. In social media, and especially in medicine, not every photo has to be you. You can put other static posts, so I love using Canva, which I also put on that list. There's a free version, and then there's a pro version. The free version I used for years, and it was really helpful. It made all the posting super easy. I kept all my colors in the same thing, and I was able to create that content and again batch that content. So whenever that's possible. I would also say, once you've established, like, okay, I'm doing social media, I'm doing Instagram or Facebook or YouTube or whatever that looks like, then you can kind of branch out to the next step and kind of figure out how, instead of creating something new for each platform, how can they intertwine? So now what I do is I write my own blog posts every week, and so my blog post is my first priority, and then from that I create 5 social media posts, because it's little segments that I've already written, right? I just grab the really important content, and then I'm sending them back to that. Remember that social media should always have an end point. So what do you want from them? Do you want them to book a free discovery call? Do you want to give them a free downloadable guide? What are you trying to do? And remember, it's more about what you're giving them, and then they'll come to you. So like, if you can give them a free downloadable guide, or if they want more info, they have that, or if they want a free consult. Don't give any medical advice online on social. And you can say it in the nicest way possible, like, love your question. Unfortunately, we can't give you, direct medical advice, but we're happy to have a free consult with you. In that free consult, again, still don't give medical advice, but at least that opens the door, if they're open to coming to see you or not. So those kind of things can be helpful, because people can often overstep their boundaries sometimes because they have easy access to you as a provider. So that can be sometimes a little bit challenging, but as long as you do it with grace and you answer appropriately and don't feel like they're not doing it maliciously, they're not trying to scam you out of money either, they just aren't thinking about it, right? They're like, oh, I feel comfortable with this person, I just want to ask. So take that as a grain of salt too, because some people will be really mean, and then then they are now going to be like, oh, I tried to, they told me to comment, they told me to talk, and then when I did, it didn't work out. So that can be helpful. In Instagram stories, for example, you can ask questions. So that's really helpful. And at the beginning, you are kind of talking to yourself, and you just have to get used to that. But as you start to do it, you'll realize that over time, there's a lot of people don't really comment or like as much as they used to. So there's a lot of people that never liked anything that I posted or officially liked it. And then they came into my office oh, I've read everything that you've written. And I'm like, really? I had no idea. Or blog posting, same thing, right? I was like, I'm writing this to no one. There's no one looking at this. And now people are like, oh, I saw that article, I already read everything, I'm ready to see you. So then that transition to seeing you, the cost, because a lot of us are cash pay, is totally different. It's that conversation's already over, they've already figured out that they want to see you, and so that makes a huge difference too. And that would be something that I would stress when it comes to social media. I also put in there photographers, videographers, so video is huge. Now you can also put a video up if you're okay, I'm trying to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. You can do a video, and then you can have it transcribed into a blog post. So you're already creating the content for the video, and now you have a blog post too. So there's a lot of ways of doing that as well. If you guys ever have questions, just send me a message. I tried a lot of things, and I'm still working on things, so I'd love to collaborate. And then I put on there too that if you're okay, I know social media is super important, I'm ready to do the investment, but personally I can't do it with my time, that's totally fine. There's a great local agency called Creative Label. They're amazing. They do everything for marketing. So from social media to like your colors, your website, everything. So they're kind of that concierge approach. So I gave you everything from do it yourself to like all done for you. And then also remember, if you are doing photos, make the small investment to get your hair or makeup done, or like pick a good outfit that you like those things matter. It's not that the superficial aspect makes a difference. It's more so that you want to show a certain sense of professionalism and dress the way that you're talking to those patients and what your brand represents. So if you wear scrubs every day, then own it. Wear scrubs every day. Put that in your post, then they can associate you with that particular thing. So that's super helpful too. And if you're like, I have no idea what to do or what to wear, and that's what's impeding me from doing this, I put a stylist in there so you guys have literally no excuse to find what works best for you. But I have found that social media is just so powerful, being that it is mostly free. So it's been really helpful. And then in social media, you can then tag your blog post, and then you can go on other people's accounts and connect with them and say, hey, I could offer something to your audience, and just offer education, just offer with nothing in return, and you'll be so surprised how many of them are so grateful and thankful, and their audience can feel that generosity as well, and then now they're connected to you too. So that can be helpful. And the same thing if you're doing your emails. Again, it depends on your particular patient base and what they're looking for, but being consistent, sticking to your niche, even if you see multiple different things, focus on what is speaking loudest to you, and the other things will come. I work with a lot of patients on gut health and thyroid issues and anxiety and depression, but I don't talk about that unless I'm talking about it in conjunction with fertility or preconception. So my patient base becomes the same type of people. So then I can provide them the best care. And then if they're looking for something else in our discovery call that I'm like, hey, I may not be a good fit for you, but here's a referral to someone that I think can really help you at that point. Well, now they're really happy that I took the 1 second to refer them to someone instead of them having to go to the internet and be like, I don't know who to go to. So they've already said in the future, if they have a friend that has something that has to do with my practice, they're gonna be like, oh, I talked to her, she's really nice, even though they never saw me. So that can be helpful too, is making that connection of just being friendly with everyone, and just, being excited about what you do, never putting down other people or other professions either. We all have a point where patients need us for something. Also, patients may see one person and then see someone else, and it's a different season of their life. Never make the patient or anyone feel like they're choosing one over the other, or one's better than the other. Let them make those decisions on their own, and they're gonna love you even more. So I think those are kind of like my top tips. Do you guys have any questions about social media, or like things that you've tried, or where you're struggling, or anything like that, or where to start?
Can you talk a bit about batching content?
Yes.
Please.
What questions do you have about that?
What is your process that you found is like the most streamlined for batching content?
So typically every Monday I batch content. I decide what blog post I'm doing first. So the topic is first. I'll write usually that blog post. So then that part is done. And then I'll decide how many posts I will take from that particular topic. Or maybe I'll say, okay, I kind of mentioned this other topic, I should put a post about that. Or maybe there was a study that I referenced, and that's gonna now be my post of just the like 2 sentences. Did you know that 1 out of 8 Americans, or whatever that looks like, so then they can then have that as well. And I try with, if you're doing Instagram, for example, once you get more familiar with it, you'll want to change up what your posts look like. So sometimes I have static posts that are just pictures or graphics, and then I'll have one that's a picture of me, and then I'll have a video. And then I kind of decide what that looks like. Same thing with Reels. Reels are another, they're like a TikTok, and I haven't done TikTok, but Reels is also hard. And it takes time, so make time for that. And batch that content as well. Start following people that you find as mentors or colleagues, and you can save them, on Instagram so that you have an idea of what you're looking for. You're not gonna repeat what they did, but you're like, hey, I liked how they brought their personality in, or that was really fun how they did that, or oh, I didn't even think about posting about that topic. I talk about that with patients all the time. So once you've started to create that, and if you can continuously stick to your what's my why, like something about myself, something about my practice, something about a condition that I treat, that will make it easier because you know, okay, I've hit that box, check. I think that helps. Something that we did for video content and things like that, we would meet with our videographer. So we use Good Vibe Media, which I also put on there. They do a subscription base, which was really nice. So they'd come in once a month. We'd have a meeting with them, like a pre-meeting at the beginning of the month. By the end of the month, we would meet to have their, they would do content for us or do video. I had to make time too to create that content to be ready for them, so that too is helpful. And then they would shoot it within an hour, and then 2 weeks later I'd get the content. So I knew what I was shooting and why, and they would create little videos for me as well. So I'd have a longer video, or if I did an online course, then they would create that content. So I knew in advance what my end goal was. Don't go in going, just take pictures of me, or like, ask me like what I do. That's great, but where are you going to use it in social media, and how can you repurpose that? I think that's helpful. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
I got one.
Sure.
Just in terms of, have you found like a sweet spot in terms of length? Let's say if you have your blog, and then you make your posts. Sometimes you see bricks of text, and just like in terms of viewership, what has been the best length for like a description?
So it depends. So it depends on, and I think what's most important actually isn't only about viewership, but it's also about how you write and what intrigues you. So if you see a long post and you see a brick and you're like, next, like you don't read it, well then you shouldn't post that way either. So depending on how you feel about content, sometimes I'll do a shorter post and then I'll say like link in bio for a full like blog, so then I don't even have to write it. You want to make sure those first like sentence is sometimes all that people see before they click like see more. So that needs to be catchy. So who are you talking to? What are you referencing? If you're just kind of starting almost in a paragraph format, that first sentence is kind of boring. So you want to make sure that it's something catchy, like, I don't know, like recently we did like, to all my mamas out there. Well, okay, if you're a mom, you're gonna go, okay, what does that mean, right? Like it's just that quick grab of attention that's helpful as well. And remember that your post, depending, like if it's a picture of like you, then your caption will probably be longer, right? But if you have like a quote or a study or like something about Tupac or something like that, well then explain like how that goes, which for those that don't know about what we were talking about with Tupac, he's gonna post about it and then we're gonna all read about it. But things like that can be helpful to do, yeah. Does that answer your question kind of? Yeah. Any other questions about like finding people or getting on social or picking a platform or anything like that?
I use John and Erica as my branding.
Yeah.
Photographers.
Yes.
They're amazing.
They're amazing. Yeah, they're a great resource too. There's a ton of local people. There's also, if you're looking at pricing and concerned about that, there's like ASU, like there's tons of people that are just looking to build their portfolio. Of course, like if you want people to pay for your service, you likely have to pay for someone else's service, so just be cautious with that part of it too, and know what you're going in for. Other thing that I posted in there too that's super easy, a lot of people, if you're like, trying to be budget friendly and doing your own photos, which is awesome. I put one of my favorite ring lights at first. I like bought all the cheap ones and I was like, I don't want to buy the $100 one, but now the $100 one is way better and I probably spent more buying the other ones. So I clicked it on there too, so you can just click it. That's great if you're building your own reels, if you're doing your own photos, you can do anything with that. And then also doing presets. So if you go to someone's social media, you can often see that all their photos look similar. So the coloring looks very similar even though they're in different places. The way that they do that is they buy presets. You can go on Etsy, it's like $3 for a preset. So just pick a preset that like is your vibe or what you want your page to look like, and then it will download itself usually into like Lightroom, which there's a free app of that, and then every time you take a picture that you want to put for social, you just add the preset onto it. They give you all the instructions on how to do it, but then all of your photos look very similar with coloring, which when as a consumer, we know that we're attracted to certain colors or certain like themes, and we like consistency. It's that flow and like harmony that we like. So if you can create that in your content, then they know what to expect. What are your brand colors? What are those filters? And you can change it once in a while and say like, I don't really like that as much, but try to stick to something that's very uniform to you. And it's also a way for someone to be like, even if they like just look at that picture with a glance, they know who it's for, right? Like they quickly, without even trying, they know who that's coming from because they always post things like that. So presets are great and they're super cheap.
Are you using a certain platform, like an app, like Final Cut?
So
Lightroom?
Yeah, so Lightroom's great. I use Lightroom for adding my presets, but if you go on Etsy and just type in presets, and I clicked it on that form as well, it will tell you whether, like, what app to use for it. There's other apps if you want to like make your stories really exciting and things like that, like In Stories, which is great, so that you can have text that comes through. It takes 2 seconds to quickly do that. But I would say if you haven't done social media or anything, start with your basics, get your presets. You can, post your own photos. If you want to take your own photos, you can have your friend take your photo or have a photographer. It just depends on your end game, and something that I do too is I plan what I'm gonna wear or what like crop I'm bringing based on what I need to post. So if I'm gonna talk about that we do telemedicine, well then I better have my computer. Or like if I'm talking about exercise, well then I'm gonna grab my yoga mat. Or like whatever that looks like, if you can plan those ahead of time, it makes it super easy because you're like, there's no reason not to post because I have the content, right? And so that would be my other suggestion.
Do you have a sense that you could share for people that want to take this seriously, like budget-wise? How much should they budget for kind of upfront and ongoing?
So a lot of things can be done free, right? So like Canva is free, so if you did your static posts that way, you can take your own pictures again. If you were starting to like, okay, I want to invest, I would say you like for video posting or video like monthly video content, that can range anywhere from like $500 to, if you're doing just a once, you're like, okay, I can only do one. It's typically a little bit more expensive, but then you can create more content or you're doing it for a longer day. That can range usually from like, I think $1,000 to like $2,000 depending, but you can create a lot of content from that. Same thing with photos. I would say depending if you do a monthly membership, it's cheaper because you're doing it under a longer period of time, but it is a couple $100, but it's way cheaper than doing an ad in a magazine that no one reads. Like most of the other forms of advertisement are way more expensive and not as helpful, and you can use it in different platforms. So that would be my recommendation. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, so let's assume that you're gonna outsource, that most people don't have the time to do all of it themselves. I mean, to do it well, what do you think a monthly budget is?
I would say like $300 to $500.
How much is like creative label? Do you know?
So they do different pricing depending on what you're asking for. So they have a really expensive option, but that includes everything. And then they do your website, they do everything, colors, everything. So you can set up like a free call with them, and then they'll walk through like what are you looking for, how much it costs, and what that entails. Yeah,
When you say really expensive,
like a couple $1,000.
like how many couple thousand?
Well, it depends on what you're doing and how long you're doing it for. So I think their basic package is like $3,000 to start.
Okay.
So and then like it depends on what kind of content you're looking for them. Yeah, but they work with like they have budgets of $50,000 or whatever, big brands too. So you just have to find what works. Yeah.
Have you done much with like infographics and just kind of like real bullet point type stuff versus text blocks?
Absolutely, and that's what I like about Canva is that you can just do that. So if you go to like my social media, so Dr. Zen NMD, you can see that too if you want like inspiration or you have questions or anything like that. I am not the the perfect person for it either, but there's sections where I'll just put like 2 sentences, like, this is a, you know, statistic based on this. Like, it just makes people think, and then at the bottom of the text you can say, you know, to learn more, check out my Instagram story. If you're like, I don't have time to write this, but I can quickly like talk about it on a video, then I can do that. So like you can play around with things like that too. Yeah.
Question.
Sure.
So for, what is your favorite planning app? And then also, I know that Instagram was dinging people for a while about using auto posting,
Mm-hmm.
and they wouldn't show your graphics and stuff to more people as opposed to like posting organically or like in the moment.
Yeah.
So what is your take on that?
Yeah, so that's a really good point. So I like Later, and it
Yeah.
helps me schedule and everything. Planoly is pretty much the same. It's just user preference. So just
Yeah.
like try both, see which one you like and which interface you like better. I always have it pushed to my phone. It doesn't auto post.
Which is good.
And then from there I will tweak it if I need to, and then I just press post. It takes me like 2 seconds.
Okay.
But I have it so it's set at a particular time of the day, and then you can look on your Instagram insights to show you what day of the week people in your group or in your following are more active, what time of day are they most active, because you may think like, oh, I'm gonna post at 8 a.m. because that's when I have time, but no one sees your content. So if you can kind of see like for me, a lot of people are like noon to 3, which I was like, that's kind of a strange time. So at like right at noon or right at like 11:50, it will remind me like, hey, you need to post this, and so I post it naturally. So that's a good point. Yeah.
Thank you.
Maybe 3 now.
Yeah, like there's
It's all
like
different,
weird.
yeah.
Yeah, and